We need to have a very serious, very direct, and completely honest conversation about what the Indiana Fever just produced against the Toronto Tempo.
Johnson, cross court. Is there time for this? Yes, there is! Sophie Cunningham pick it up right where she left off with a 3-ball to beat the first quarter buzzer. Clark, Cunningham, sidestep, 3 more! Clark sidesteps and finally gets that 3 to go. More of a sigh of relief.
Because this was not a routine win that can be filed away with a brief summary and moved past. This was a statement, a comprehensive, authoritative, and collectively delivered statement that answered every lingering question about this team's trajectory and silenced every skeptical argument with the most persuasive rebuttal available in professional sports. The final scoreboard. 113-91. Indiana wins. Indiana wins by a margin so decisive that no qualifier, no asterisk, and no contextualizing framework can diminish what it represents about where this franchise is heading when its best player is given the organizational commitment she deserves. Let us begin with the number that defines the full competitive significance of this moment: 4 wins in a row. The Indiana Fever have now won 4 consecutive games, and the most recent one was delivered against the Toronto Tempo, the same Toronto Tempo that, in the first meeting between these two teams this season, did not merely outplay Indiana, they embarrassed them. The Tempo delivered a competitive lesson in that first matchup that was genuinely uncomfortable to observe and analytically difficult to explain away through variance or circumstance. And Indiana's response, the statement delivered in the rematch, was a 22-point victory that stands as one of the most complete and most authoritative performances this team has produced across the full course of this season. Now let us build the honest and complete competitive accounting of this game, because multiple players contributed at levels that deserve specific recognition, and the full picture of what happened is the story of what this Indiana Fever team looks like when it operates the right way. Caitlin Clark produced 21 points and 14 assists. 14. That number requires a moment of genuine analytical appreciation before anything else is said about this game. 14 assists in a single professional basketball game is not an accumulation of routine passes converted into made baskets. It is the output of a player operating at the absolute ceiling of her facilitation capabilities, finding the right teammate in the right position at the right moment, with such sustained precision and such comprehensive court vision that 14 separate possessions were converted into made baskets directly because of her decision-making and her execution. Against professional defensive coverage, in a game where the entire opposing team understood that stopping Clark's playmaking was their primary defensive objective. 14 assists anyway. Clark shot 1 of 8 from three-point range in this game, and that number belongs in the complete and honest accounting because intellectual honesty demands it. 1 of 8 from 3 is well below what Clark produces at her baseline efficiency, and well below what the full body of her season-long three-point performance suggests she will generate across any given game. The shot was not there on this specific night. That is the factually accurate description of what happened from beyond the arc. And yet, 14 assists, 21 points, a defensive contribution including a steal and a block. A competitive engagement on that end of the floor that observers have noted with increasing frequency during this winning streak. Clark locked in defensively, competing in the passing lanes, communicating on the rotations, doing the things on the defensive side of the ball that the critics who suggested she was not a complete player spent this season trying to deny. She could not make a three-pointer on this night, and she still produced a performance that most players in this league cannot approach when everything is working for them. That is the complete picture of Caitlin Clark, That is what 14 assists from a player shooting 1 of 8 from 3 actually communicates about the depth and the breadth of her competitive impact. The free throw misses. 4 of them in this game deserve direct acknowledgement because they are a correctable execution issue for a player who entered this season shooting at elite efficiency from the line and whose free throw accuracy has been among the most reliable single statistical facts of her professional career. Not tentatively, not carefully. Back, competing, contributing. The kind of toughness that professional athletes develop and demonstrate in competitive moments that no practice session can fully replicate. She came back and she was a factor. That matters for what it says about this team's competitive identity as the season progresses into its most important stretch. The 4-game winning streak is now a documented competitive fact with a specific analytical origin. The transformation traces directly to the period around the Washington Mystics game, the moment when the offensive system began consistently centering Clark's capabilities, when the Clark-Boston pick-and-roll became the primary offensive action rather than an occasional element within a broader motion framework, and when the results of that organizational shift began accumulating in the win column with a clarity and a decisiveness that the first 10 games of this season had entirely withheld. 5-5 under the motion offense that prioritized other players' opportunities and constrained Clark's role as primary playmaker. 4-0 since the shift toward Clark-centered basketball. The comparative record is not an argument that requires elaborate analytical support. It is the data. And the 22-point rematch victory against a team that embarrassed Indiana in the first meeting, delivered through 14 Clark assists, 27 Mitchell points on 9 of 11 shooting, 24 Cunningham points on 6 of 7 from 3, and an 18-point Boston double-double, is the most comprehensive single-game expression of what that data means for this franchise's competitive potential when the system is right. The context of what this winning streak is reversing cannot be overstated. Indiana entered this season with championship framing, with the organizational language of title contention and aspirational competitive goals. Then went 5-5, lost to Portland, lost to the Valkyries in the first meeting with Toronto, generated the kind of performances that made the championship aspirations seem disconnected from the observable competitive reality. And then, in the span of 4 games playing Clark basketball with Clark as the primary engine, produced the game winner against Washington, the historic Boston partnership against Chicago, the Connecticut victory, and now the dominant Toronto rematch. The competitive turnaround is real, and it is documented. Sophie Cunningham's 24-point performance in this game arrives in the broader context of everything surrounding her recent organizational situation. The Instagram post, the deletion, the retraction, the injury designation. And her production here reflects a player who brought competitive fire and genuine contribution to a game Indiana needed to deliver a statement performance. 6 of 7 from three-point range is not a coincidence or a lucky night. It is a player locked in competitively and executing at the level her shooting capability has always suggested she can reach when the system puts the ball in her hands in the right positions. The MVP conversation surrounding Clark has now accumulated the competitive foundation it needed to be taken seriously beyond the statistical argument. 21 points and 14 assists on a night the shot is not falling is the kind of performance that defines MVP cases, not the individual brilliance of one extraordinary night, but the sustained, multi-dimensional impact that makes a team better in every game, regardless of which specific weapon is working on a given evening. 4 wins in 4 games. The team's record under Clark-centered basketball is undefeated. And the margin of the most recent win, 22 points against a team that previously embarrassed them, is the competitive evidence that makes the MVP narrative something more than advocacy. The upcoming schedule continues to be favorable. Atlanta has already been defeated by Indiana this season. Phoenix has been one of the league's more vulnerable rosters. The window for an extended winning run that dramatically reshapes Indiana's season record and its competitive standing heading toward the most consequential stretch of the year is open. Whether the coaching staff maintains the Clark-centered offensive commitment that produced these 4 wins, 113-91, Exactly what that new era looks like when it is fully operational and fully committed to the player who makes all of it possible. The scoreboard is the final word, 113-91. 4 wins in a row, 14 assists on a night she went 1 of 8 from 3. That is Caitlin Clark. That is what this Indiana Fever team can be, and that is what it needs to be from here forward, every single night for the remainder of this season.